Can we start? All right. Welcome to our GrowYng event from founder to impact investor. I'm very happy that you're all here and also to those who joined online. I'm Martina and I'm in charge of the BRIC startup community here and also the Startup Lab memberships. Let me quickly go through the agenda for today. Firstly, I would like to give you some insights about BRIC because I know that we have a lot of new people here. And then I would like to give you a short introduction to our startup lab and also why we're doing this event. And then Laura Kohler will give a keynote about how to measure impact. And then we will have an entertainment act by Dein Cousin. I'm very curious about that. And then finally, we will have our fireside chat with Ingo Dahm, which will be moderated by Philippa Köng. Well, BRIC is an innovation hub and also a future factory who pushes innovation and also supports startup who wants to make an impact for a livable future. So BRIC was initiated by the RAG Foundation. The RAG Foundation, they have a history in the coal mining industry. So they are supporting long-term projects, which has existed since the end of the German coal mining industry. So this has primarily to do with water management, polder measures, and also groundwater purification. They are taking also the burden of the public sector. So they are making an important impact or an important contribution to an ecological and economical change. So we are making the transition from old economy to the new economy by building this startup ecosystem. So this is BRIC, like the picture down there, and these are our CEOs, Philipp Herrmann and also Christian Lüttke. So what do we have to offer our startups? Here in a nutshell, so we are offering community building, which means startups can connect, they can network with other startups here, with our experts. They can also use our co-working spaces, and we are offering startup programs, so we are making tailor-made programs. We are targeting startups who are late pre-seed and also late pre-seed to seed phase in the vertical health and energy mostly. And the programs last like 8 weeks. And then we have finally co-innovation programs where we are working with corporates. So why are we doing this event? So to encourage our startups, we created this GrowYng format. So we want our startups to learn and also to make them grow and also to push their network. So we are inviting our community and also inspirational speakers. And our target group is also here, early stage founders and early stage startups. So this is the offer we are having for our startup lab. We're having community and network, 24/7 co-working spaces, mentoring, office hours, and also fundraising support. And finally, also our Brickademy, which I'll tell you more about it in the next slide. Here, this program, we created it new. So it will start from 10th of April. So in the first column, we will have like the basics. So we are going through business model canvas or pitch deck as CQA. And from June to July, we are working on the validation and on the market. And then from August until September, we will go into the strategy. So this will be the first week. No, not the first week, the first round. And then after September, we will start again the second round. So we have some startups here, so if you are interested, you can apply. All right, we have also new prizes. So we are offering also free memberships, but only for enrolled students. And so you have to be a student and you have to prove it. And these are like the main offers we have. And the difference between the 150 offer and the 250 offer is that you can register your company and you have also a fixed desk. So this is the difference. Yes, I think that's it. So you want to become a member, you can scan your QR code. Yes. And then, all right, that was from my side. And I would like to give Laura the floor and to tell us more about how to measure impact. All right.
Thank you very much, Martina. More than happy to be here with you and you, everyone, to see you. Many familiar faces. That's wonderful. Thanks a lot. So for all of those who don't know me, my name is Laura. I'm a member of the executive board of BRIC, and I'm very happy that today I have the opportunity to talk about 3 topics, actually. This is what I'm going to do. First topic is I will talk about sustainability. So what is sustainability, and also how can you build a startup that has a positive impact? What are the models you can use? Then I'll switch to impact measurement, as Martina said, and I will show you 3 examples of 3 impact investors, how they measure impact and how you can prepare yourself for exactly that. And then I will come back to BRIC and talk about the fact, how do we do impact measurement of startups? So that's it, and how do we support startups? That's it. So let's give it a start. I think Martina talked about that already. So this is our mission. You should know it already. So we inspire and empower entrepreneurs and innovators who shape a livable future. And normally, if we talk about that, we talk about our programs and how we support startups to be successful. But today, I want to talk about another aspect, which is, what do we mean when we talk about a livable future, actually? Let's give more flesh to the bone here. That's what I want to do now. So let's start with the basics. So talk about sustainability. When we talk about sustainability, we normally use this model here, which is called the sustainability triangle, or the 3P model. So if you build a sustainable business, then of course you want to have profits, but you should also have a positive impact on the people, the society, and also the planet. Sounds pretty easy, I know. There are also other models to show that. For example, the triple bottom line model. So John Elkington claims that, but there are other researchers who say this is my model. Anyways, again, you see the same aspects. So it's good for the planet, good for the society, and good for the economy. Again, sounds very easy. If you look at German politics at the moment, I think you can realize how hard it is to be positive on all 3 pillars. So you see all those discussions. No, we have to save the planet. But we also have to be fair to the society and give money to those who don't have enough. But also, of course, we have to do everything to not lose our economy. So again, you see how hard it is to be positive on all three parts. But we have to manage that. If you look to the past a little bit, then maybe we have to admit that especially economic leaders and also political leaders, they were more focusing on building a very strong economy in the end. So, and when having a very strong economy, we said, well, then we also have a happy people, fair societies, and the planet, okay, it maintains itself. This is how we were looking at it in the past, of course. And you all know that this came with a cost. And maybe we have to change the system and the mindset. So looking at this model, which is a little bit more common, especially in those who deal with sustainability today, this is the priority model of sustainability. And here we see that in the end, we have to be honest, only if our planet is in a state where we as humans survive, we are then able to build fair societies and build a strong economy. So in the end, we have to ask ourselves, isn't this priority model the better one? Anyways, I don't want to discuss it with you now. You can think about it yourself. But let's assume you want to accept that and say, yeah, but what does it mean to have a healthy planet? What can I do as a founder to really support that? There is this concept of the 9 planetary boundaries. I hope you saw that before. It is this concept that was developed and published first time in 2009, and it shows us that we have 9 planetary boundaries that we really have to stick to. And when it came out in 2009, so only 7 of those 9 boundaries were assessed, and we found out that we exceeded already 3 of them, which was already a critical situation. If you look at it today or last year, there was an update published in 2023, and there you can see that now all boundaries were assessed, and what we see is that we exceeded already 7 of them. So you understand that this taking care of the planet maybe is really a very serious thing. And what I want to say is that it is also the responsibility of every entrepreneur to really think about the fact how if I build my company, how do I have a positive impact on exactly that? Anyways, we know that if we exceed those boundaries, the bad thing is that maybe we don't see it. We don't see the consequences today. We only see it in the future, or we see it in completely other areas of this world. So not in the industrialized areas, but maybe more in the developing countries. So that's why this lady did something great. Don't know if you know her. I didn't know her before. Actually, this is Gro Harlem Brundtland, and she used to be the Prime Minister of Norway in 1978. And she headed a commission, and this commission did one thing that was very important for today. They came up with an established, or today very well-known, definition of what sustainable development means. And I want to read it to you, because sustainable development is the development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. So what does that mean in the end? I summarized it here for you. First of all, sustainable development is always about human needs, of course. It's about us surviving on the planet. Then it's about intergenerational justice. So whatever we do has to be good for present generations and for the people that are falling on the planet, our kids and the kids of our kids. And then intragenerational justice, we have to care not only for industrial countries, but also for what happens in the developing countries today and in future. It is complex, but it is the responsibility of every leader here in the world. You know, you should know, or most probably you know them already, the Sustainable Development Goals. Those were developed by the United Nations in 2015. And those are the 17 goals that should put the world on a sustainable course. If you don't know them, look at them. It's very, very interesting. It is more done for countries than for companies, but many huge companies are already referring to those goals, because you have behind every goal there's a catalog of clear KPIs you can also refer to when talking about your impact. And what is good again is that you see again this order here. So there are goals for the biosphere, there are goals for the society, and again for the economy. And there's the last one, goal number 17, which is the partnerships for the goals. And this brings us to another component, which is very important. If we want to drive impact in the world, then we can only do it together. So this partnership and being open for partnerships with others, especially if you want to drive impact, and is an important aspect as well. I could talk for ages about how you can build a sustainable company. I just want to bring like 4 concepts that you could use here. It's a full slide, I know, sorry for that, but I wanted to bring them all. The first one is the donut economy. It is developed by Kate Raworth. She is a British economist, and she came up with this easy thinking of, okay, you see this donut in light green here, and this is the area below a certain ecological ceiling, the planetary boundaries, and above a certain social foundation, which is, again, the social development goals. So if you are in between the green area, then your business is in a good mood for having a social impact. Then if you are more on the social side, then maybe the economy for the common good is something that you want to follow. It's developed by Christian Felber, and he says that economic leaders should also nurture society, like the old economic leaders always wanted to do. And you can test your company in a way that you fill in this common good matrix. In German, it's Gemeinwohl matrix. And here, if you answer those questions with the 4 values that you see here, it's something like ecological, how is it called? Environmental sustainability, human dignity, and other aspects. And then you also have the different stakeholder groups. Answering all those questions gives you a good understanding of in what way you are feeding the society or nurturing society. Then I think you're all aware of the aspect of the circular economy. It's very important if you are developing products. So keeping the materials in the loop and also trying to reduce waste or eliminate waste at all. And in the end, if this is all too complicated for you, you can use the last 3 aspects here, which is efficiency, consistency, and sufficiency. Efficiency, I think it's clear. So you use materials in an efficient way and have an efficient production. Consistency means that you only use nature-friendly materials, and sufficiency, in the end, is the most complicated aspect. It is to prevent consumption or to reduce consumption. Of course, complicated if you want to earn money with selling products, but there are new ideas on using products longer and adding services like repair services, which is then another very attractive business model. So that's enough about how to build a sustainable company. It should just be a little warm up for the evening. Let's come to impact investment. Not to impact investment, to impact measurement. How do you do that in general? There's a very traditional model that you could use for the first steps, which is the IOOI methodology. Most of you might know it already. And it gives you a possibility to differentiate between the inputs, the outputs, the outcomes, and the impact of your business. I will show you in detail what that means. So inputs, of course, is like the people that you invest in, the material and other investment. So it's something that you bring in the company. The outputs is the direct output, like the products that you build. For example, a website that you are building, or the first project coming out, your first services that you deliver. It's not yet about success. It's more about the result that is there and lies on the table. If you come to the outcomes, this is, I would say, the normal KPIs that we look at when we talk about the success of a company. It's more the revenues, it's the profits generated by selling product or offering services. And now we come to the impact, and that's the interesting aspect. So impact is more on a societal level. It is the CO2 emissions avoided, it can be use of raw materials reduced, it can also be people employed. So it's everything that happens more on the societal level, right? And it's we should not mix up outcomes and impact. It's 2 different things. And impact investors are actually looking for impact here. I brought three examples of impact investors, how they communicate on their websites, what they expect you to achieve when doing impact or having a positive impact. The first example is Planet A Ventures. You might all know them. They are founded, besides others, by Fridtjof Detzner. And first of all, they are investing in teams that are active in those areas here: climate mitigation, waste reduction, resource savings, and biodiversity protection. And here again, you see that they are referring to the Sustainable Development Goals. So it is something that is highly used, which is very good. What means impact for them? They show the formula here. So they look at the improvement rate of a business times units sold. So here again, you see two aspects. It's the improvement rate on the impact side, and then this is and you also have the business perspective here in this formula. What does that exactly mean? They show it on their website. They have great examples here. So what they do, all of those impact investment funds, they have, of course, experts to measure impact, and they always do, or most of them do, product lifecycle assessments, meaning that they look at what is the material that goes into the product and what is the emissions that come out of the product. This is the footprint that we are talking about, and this is then compared. This is the last bullet point here on the slide, to so-called reference products. Those products that are traditionally on the market already, but don't have the same impact. This is the comparison that they make, and this is the improvement rate which is then coming out. So to make that very clear, they are working with this example here. It's called Traceless Materials. It's one of their ventures. They are building, or they are producing bio-based materials. So it has the reason to replace plastics. And this is also what you see here in this formula. So impact means here, in this case, the CO2 emissions that they save in comparison to virgin plastics, and then times the business perspective, again, the amount of material that they want to produce until 2030. So this is then the impact. And for you as founders, it's interesting that those impact investors have this perspective, and it is a good idea to start early to also look at the impact and not only the outcomes of your company. Secondly, there is World Fund. It's also friends of us, I would say. So Tim Schumacher is one of the founder, and they have a more narrow perspective. They say we only invest in startups with huge climate performance potential. So decarbonization is the code word here. And in their white paper of 30 pages about this whole topic, you can also find that they invest in technologies saving at least 100 million tons of CO2 until 2040. So this is then the impact you have to prove. The way how they show it, or analyze it is again comparable to also what Planet A Ventures does. So there is a quantitative analysis, again with the life cycle assessment with a team of experts. And here it's really only focused on CO2 savings. And then on top of that, which is interesting, it's not only the CO2 savings that are important, but also the other environmental aspects. Like, for example, what does this startup do, or this company, in terms of biodiversity or water use or waste? This is also important. They don't quantify that, but they have a qualitative assessment on that. And in the end, you see that again, they also have categories like renewable energy, full material circularity, and other aspects. So just to give you an idea. I have a third example, which is more social. It's Ananda Impact Ventures. Here you see how they do it. They do it differently. They are active in different categories: redefining healthcare, sustainability transformation, educational empowerment, and others. And it's more about building a fair society and giving everyone the chance to have the same starting or the same experience and chances in the world. And they have a very individual way of measuring impact. So in the end, the startup brings impact KPIs, and then they analyze it together with their experts. And in the end, it goes in the term sheet. And what is interesting here about the term sheet, and they show it on the website, so it's totally open, is that the investors are incentivized by impact. So in the end, only if the startups reach their impact to a certain extent, then the investors, the people working at the fund, do really get a good compensation. So it is, for me, a good way to handle that. This is the last example that I have. I'm very curious how you, Ingo, are going to judge that and how to comment that. I just want to come back to BRIC for the last seconds of my keynote and talk about the fact, how do we look at startup impact? And first of all, you should know that, or you already know that we look in startups in those categories. So we are active, of course, in human health, we are active in clean energy, and we are building the third topic, which is responsible production. So this is the 3 impact categories where we are working, or we are active in, and we are looking for startups. Secondly, startups applying to our programs in the future will have to bring a compelling and clear theory of change. What is a theory of change? In the end, it's in written word described what you want to make as an impact. Not the outcome, the impact again. And optional, if startups already have impact KPIs, we are more than happy to receive them, but it is just optional. And the third thing, the most important one, I would assume, is that in the program, we of course support the startups in refining their theory of change and also working on the impact KPIs, because it's our goal to prepare the startups for then the next investment round. So for preparing to answer the question that I just showed you. That's it. That's what I wanted to share with you. Thank you very much for listening to me, and now I look forward to the entertainment act, actually. Thank you.
Thank you for your talk, Laura. I think this is my mic, right? Okay, so may I give this back to you? Mic check. Hi guys, how are you? Good to hear. So yes, my name is GrowYng. First of all, we have a couple of internationals here, is that true? Give me a small sign, please, if you don't speak German. Okay. Okay. So my act is going to be in German. But that's not a problem. In the next 5 minutes, if it looks like I'm making a joke, just laugh very loudly, okay? Great, he doesn't look convinced at all. Okay, anyways. So, genau, mein Name ist GrowYng, ich bin Rapper und Entertainer. Hier aus Essen, war aber auch in der Startup-Welt unterwegs. Und es gibt viele so Gemeinsamkeiten so zwischen der Startup-Welt und so Rap und Comedy. Zum Beispiel sind deine Prozesse mega wichtig. So, mit Prozessen kommt man mega weit. Ich hatte zum Beispiel einen Prozess wegen Steuerhinterziehung. Das war keine so gute User Experience. Und was ich jetzt machen würde, ist, ich würde von euch Wörter sammeln für einen Freestyle-Rap und die da einbauen. Habt ihr da Bock drauf? Sehr gut. Einmal diesen Ständer einstellen, dann lege ich los. Ständer wird doch nicht eingestellt. Alles klar, so. Dann fangen wir an. Ich brauche Wörter für einen Rap. Sagt einfach rein. Ach du Heiliger. Die BWL-Wörter. Okay, Retention. Ansonsten. Ich habe Impact gehört. Aha, oh Gott. Ich dachte, es kommen so Wörter wie Spätzle, aber was hast du nochmal gesagt? Nachhaltigkeit? Warte, ich muss schreiben, warte. Du sagst es. Ist ja zu schnell für mich. Nachhaltigkeit, da hatten wir da Spätzle. Innovation. Bürokratie. Sehr real. Burn Rate. Leute, diese ganzen... Schau mal, Burn Rate. Spaß. Fritz Cola. Hast du Brücken gesagt? Ist das cool für dich? Ja, okay, alles klar. Okay, warte, ich glaube, wir sind gleich bei der Grenze erreicht. Oh nein. Kam das von dir, Ingo? Guck mal, Ingo sabotiert. Du hast gesagt Spaß. Der war das, ne? Das war gar nicht Laura. Ja. 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9. Ah, wir haben schon 10, leider. Ich hätte es so gern genommen, Leute, aber wir haben schon 10 Wörter. Okay. Alles klar, so. Salvatorische Klausel. Das kann schief gehen. Das ist schon schief gegangen. Aber wir reißen uns zusammen. Das passt schon. Alles klar. Marc, kannst du mir den Beat geben? I'm one of those people that's so smart that I'm uncomfortable in this world. Retention oder Retention? Retention, was ist das überhaupt? Customer Retention, ne? Ja, ich habe Philosophie studiert, aber Business hängen geblieben. Okay. Ich fange an zu rappen und ich krieg eure Attention. Kunden rennen weg, weil ich hab keine Retention. Macht das Sinn? Ich war damals noch ein Kind. Heute stehe ich auf der Bühne und mache, was ich will. Guck nicht auf Outcome, guck auf Impact. Das habe ich gelernt. Ich bin im Urlaub auf Insel. Auf einer Insel so wie Dubai. Wenn ich rappe, ist es zu nice. Okay, was steht da? Da steht Nachhaltigkeit. Gib mir ein Wort und ich finde einen Reim. Jeder weiß, dein Cousin, dieser Typ hat Style. Zu mir sagte noch kein VC nein. Einige schon, aber egal. Ich esse lecker Spätzle. Was reimt sich darauf? Außer Megle, die Marke, die Firma. Manchmal mache ich Workshops mit Kindern. Stimmt, ist ein Fact, weil es sich reimt. Was steht hier? Ich kann's nicht lesen, nein. Ich muss arbeiten an meiner Schrift. Ich bin einfach ich. Sie wissen, dein Cousin, ich bin einfach King. Ich hab's inzwischen gecheckt, es ist Innovation. Sie kennen meinen Namen in der ganzen Nation. Danke für den kleinen Lacher. Okay. Eine Sache, die mich nervt, ist Bürokratie. Sie wissen, dein Cousin, ich bin real wie noch nie. Vielen Dank für eure Energie. Apropos Energie. H2 up. Was geht? Ey. Der Beat ist geradeaus. Es geht nur eine Richtung und zwar geradeaus. Denk mal drüber nach. Deutsche Rapper sind Clowns. Ich trete gerade auf, okay. Burn Rate. Was ist das noch? Ich weiß es nicht, ich bete zu Gott, dass es mir einfällt. Dein Cousin ist sehr nice. Und jetzt ist meine Zeit. Ein sehr schönes Wort ist Spaß. Und ich bin am Start. Kein 50 Cent, aber ich bin in the club. Wisst ihr noch, damals, der Song, das war nice. Okay, Fritz Cola trinke ich gerne, weil das Erze Koffein, das hat das Koffein. DCA, Mann, ich bin real. Ich baue diese Brücken nach einem kleinen Tritt. Du weißt es, du gehst auf Krücken. Das waren die Wörter. Vielen, vielen Dank, Leute. Dankeschön. So, das war nach all diesen Impacts, nach all diesen Insights, war das der dumme Part der Show. Ich hoffe, ihr genießt den Rest. Vielen Dank.
Danke, danke. Thank you, thank you. Now I would like to give the stage to Ingo Dahm and Philippa. Oder Ingo erstmal, ja.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Ingo, and today people ask me to come here to inspire you. I'm not really sure if I can do that, because inspiration or giving inspiration to other people is really something that is a tough task. But I can tell you a little bit about my journey. And maybe at the end of the day, I can invite you to follow my journey. I hope that at the end of the day, you have more questions than you had before. Okay, let's start, and I give you a short idea who am I and what I did in the past. It works. Okay, that's me, without the head. I'm an engineer. I'm an electrical engineer. And in the past, I worked as a scientist. And when I worked as a scientist, I had the opportunity to program robots, to develop AI. This was a lot of fun. And I became invited all over the world. Yes, I went by plane to some very, very nice places. And I gave presentations all over the world. And I received credits and nice amount of cash just for giving a presentation how to program robots to play soccer. I mean, that's bullshit, isn't it? But it was a very important scientific task. This is a true story. I did that. And at the same time, I had a wife. It works? Yeah. At the same time, I was married to my wife, Ina. And she did something completely different. She worked at a very, very dark place. I have no idea if there is something that you personally have seen before. The name of that place is Jugendschutzstelle. And this is the place where the police brings teenage prostitutes, for example, or kids beaten by their parents. And quite often, I received more money for a 30 minutes talk than she received for a month of her very valuable task. As a family, we found that money has two sides. There's one side of the coin that seems to be worthy. For sure, people paid several thousand euros just to invite me to give a talk that nobody really understands. And on the other hand, I think everybody in the room knows and agrees with me that Ina's task was much, much more worth compared to what I did. But it's just normal in our society that I received more than she. And not only because she's a woman, which is a different topic. Once, our institute had in December a leftover of about 50,000 euros. And we were afraid that we would lose the money if we wouldn't buy something meaningful until end of year. In Germany, we call it Haushaltrecht. I would call it stupidity. We bought a computer a Sun Ultra Spark, which was a high-end computer at that time. And high-end computer means it loses about half of its worth within half a year. So we bought a Sun Ultra Spark for 50,000 euro and left it in a box for almost a year because nobody really needed it. And at the same time, my wife needed to decide if she would like to get to the zoo with the kids or buy ice cream. So that box contained a computer which was worth 1 year free of ice cream for 1,000 kids. And this happens all over in our society. And we do nothing against it. So my wife and me needed to discuss that at the kitchen table because we were married. We are married. But we were married at this point of time also. And we had no idea how to solve that. And then my phone, which looked like that, I'm a little bit older than the majority of people here. My phone rang, and a person came up to me with an idea. And he told me, Ingo, why don't you invest in kids? I said, well, what? No, in kids in Thailand. What do you want me to do? Well, in average, kids in Thailand, when they have no education, at the end of the day, they earn, let's say, $80 per month. But they will earn several $100 per month after education. But you cannot afford any kind of education when you need all your money to spend it for just something to drink and something to eat. So, just to give you an idea, when you earn 40 euro or 400 euro, everything you need is pay once 4,000 euro. And he told me, well, they could pay back 80 euro per month, and after, let's say, 10 years, they have a very good living compared to their circumstances, and you have a very good return of invest. I never wanted to earn money from people who receive less money than Hartz IV, as we call it here in Germany. So I rejected that offer. But we thought about that, and for the first time in my life, I understood that there is something which bridges the world of worthy and needy. There is something that is a not only return on invest, but it is possible to realize a financial return on impact. And this is something that my wife and me are looking for since that point of time. We thought maybe there are impact investing opportunities that grow faster than others. And this is startup investing. However, startup investing is difficult. Startup investing, from the investor's perspective, is risky. It's time-consuming. You need a certain knowledge. And at the end of the day, it's not really affordable for the most people. And so my wife told me, Ingo, you're an engineer. You could solve that. And I told her, let's do this together. So we invented something. and I illustrated it here. What do you see? It's a machine. It's a data kraken. Like Google, a machine that looks in the internet for data. A time machine and an AI component. So we looked at several 100,000 historical data of startups and found out what could an investor have known at the point of time machine, when he or she would have been able to invest. And because we live in the future of the foundation of those startups, we already know which startups are good and which startups failed. So we trained our AI to find out in which startups to invest and which to reject. This sounds a little bit spooky. However, I know that you have more questions than before and you can ask them afterwards. So with this special machine, we tried to overcome the knowledge gap. And there's something more that we invented. And we tried to solve one of the biggest problems in the financial industry. And this is the principal agent issue. Principal agent issue means when I ask a person, for example, a consultant at my bank, what to buy, he will tell me this or that because he receives a nice provision on that. So he has different interest than me. So what we do at Capacura is something very easy. We trust in that strange machine, invest our own money, and after that, when we risk our own money, then we invite others to follow us. We did this for a couple of years, and right now we have a very nice growth rate of over 30% per year, which means people who invested in our portfolio startups, over 30 right now, had the opportunity to earn more than 30% every single year. And at the very, very beginning, when we started that approach with that strange machine, with that AI, and that stupid idea to invest only in startups that try to make the world a better place, people asked us, how much money will it cost if you only invest in startups that make the world a better place? And I always kept saying, how much more will you earn when you only invest in startups that understand treating people as human individuals, treating the planet as a very important resource, and understanding that a partner relationship to your sustainable relationship to your partner, how much more can you earn with those companies who respect a very good together? Today, we received so many awards, and we started with literally nothing on our account, but as every startup, just 25,000 that you need in order to start something just from scratch. Today, we have over 20 million assets under management, and we grow and grow and grow. Everybody is able to invest with Capacura starting from as little as 1,000 euro and create his or her own portfolio just on your personal ideas. You want to invest only in female founders? You can do it. You want to invest just in software SaaS startups? Just do it. You want to invest only in climate? Do it. You are able to create your own portfolio. And this is how we started. I don't know where it brings us, but I can tell you this is so great to look back the last 5 years. It was such a journey. It was such a hard time to fight for the great idea. But I always knew why I did it. And I always think about that phone call, and unfortunately, I don't remember who were the person who brought me to that idea. However, it means to me that you can make an impact to each and every person, even when the person does not know that you change the way he or she thinks.
Ich habe eigentlich eine sehr durchdringende Stimme. Thank you, Ingo. Thank you so much for joining us. And you said it's hard to inspire people. I hope that everyone agrees that this was truly inspiring, especially because of the personal touch. I think this is so much more valuable to share your personal insights. And it brings me to, I can skip the first 2 or 3 parts of my fireside chat, asking you for your background, asking you for what Capacura is doing, and most importantly, asking you for your motivation. I think the motivation, has become very clear, and this is great. Thank you. Just put it there. The motivation is done, so that's fine. However, one thing that is, to me, still very interesting is your transition. The transition phase from being an entrepreneur, but also being an engineer, to being an investor. This is 2, at least from the outside, it looks like it's 2 very different topics and very different tasks also to conduct. Is there, first of all, what was the transition phase like for you? And second of all, is there maybe something that you as the investor, Ingo, would tell your younger self, the entrepreneurial Ingo, to do differently?
Well, first of all, about the transition. When you speak about transition, most people think this is a process that is like a step. From one step to the next, to the next, to the next, and it's quite simple and straight. But it's not like this. It is much harder. My transition started when I founded my first own startup. My transition started when I observed how hard it was to raise capital. It was so unenjoyable to speak with investors after the crash of the dot-com bubble in 2000 something. And then I noticed that there are people who had so much more money I could ever imagine. I was in a hotel and I was invited, and I invented at that point of time I invented the mobile ticket. So when you receive a QR code on your mobile phone, this is one of my inventions that I made in 1999. And And I asked them, please switch on your mobile phone. I want to tell you something. I want to show you something. And those investors spoke to each other, and one said, well, when my phone rings, I won't put that 50K in the pot today. And it really took some minutes after I realized they had a kind of fee. When their phone rings, they put 50K in a pot. Today,
This is like in a sports club. If you don't attend the training, you have to pay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. And today I would tell my younger I, at this point of time, tell them, just ring your fucking phones and invest in my company instead of putting that money into the pot. This was really so important to understand that, and this hardened my observation that the world is sometimes so crude and unfair. And however, I'm so happy that I made that journey, and even though it was so difficult and we didn't receive the money from those guys, I'm so happy that we didn't, because today I'm super sure maybe we would have been more successful. However, this would have had an impact on my soul. And I'm happy that my soul stayed untouched of that. So everything in the world happens for a good reason. And quite often you do not know what that reason is.
Thank you. I think what has become pretty clear is that you've basically combined your engineering background, your love for numbers, I assume it is, with the very personal experience of the important things in life. And you've talked about your risk-reducing machine, I'd call it now. However, one thing, and that kind of goes into the direction of what Laura is saying. I did understand, obviously I didn't understand the mechanics behind it, but I did understand that it uses mathematics and data to look into the future of a specific startup to have risk reduction. However, how is the impact coming into play? You're only investing in impact startups. Is there like a specific part measuring impact? Is that something where your personal measurements, maybe also your gut feeling comes into play? Maybe you can spend a little bit time explaining us how do you measure impact, and what kind of impact startups actually make it into Capacura?
So we just invest in 3 areas. It's education, it's healthcare, and it's environment, which is quite a broad topic, as Laura already explained. It can be biodiversity, it can be climate, it can be clean water. It is, we invest in the planet and in the people living on that planet. So this for us means we invest in the future. How to measure the impact? This is quite simple. Count the amount of people where you touch a life in a positive manner, which is simple in healthcare and education, right? And for the planet, you stop putting poison in our environment, or you reduce poison, you draw it from the environment, and you can measure the amount. Maybe it's not poisonous in the chemical sense, like CO2, but it's not a good thing to emit too much carbon dioxide. However, you can do this with CO2. You can do this with dirty water. You can do it with acids. You can do it with plastics. It's quite simple. Just say what it is and how much you reduce. That's it. And the second thing that you need to be aware is you need to invest in startups where you cannot divide the impact from the business itself. Because when you do so, every startup will go through a kind of path to hell. A very difficult time. And when you have the opportunity to whether let your beloved company members leave the company or kill the impact of the product, most people would do the second. And I understand that. So when you teach kids, you cannot divide making money from impact. This is something that we love. When there is a great startup like Ecosia, and they performed super great, and I love it. However, I wouldn't have invested because of it was possible that they stop planting trees and just make money with their search engine. And it is very good that Tim Schumacher invested in them. And it's even better, and kudos to him, that he gave back his shares to Christian and the company. This is super great. However, we as Capacura wouldn't have invested because of you could divide impact from economical success. And this is something we don't like.
Maybe that brings me to my next question, because I've noted down your investment decisions, and if you've basically started to elaborate on that, I remember from our pre-talks, you have that risk-reducing machine, yes, that is the basic data that you use as a preliminary decision. However, obviously you also spend time with the teams and you go into investigation and you do a proper due diligence. Since we have lots of startup founders here, obviously the most important thing to them is to understand how does that mechanic work, what kind of factors are you watching out for, is there certain no-goes? You've mentioned one already, but maybe there's more. If you can give us a little more insights on that, that'd be great.
So there is a super cool talk from Bill Gross, published on TED. His TED talk is named "The Single One Reason Why Startups Succeed." Well, he not only answered that question, but he also brought 5 different topics, and based on several hundreds of startups, it is idea, it's a team, it's a timing, it's a business model, and it's access to capital. After several years of scientific work, we can say he is right, but he missed out access to capital plus access to knowledge. So we call it access to smart capital. But these are the 5 things that we look in startups. And we do not want to hunt the classic unicorn, because there's too little data about unicorn startups in the world. Because there are not so many startups that made it to a $1 billion evaluation. So we look for the lower 70%. For the 70% that go bankrupt or liquidation or just stop the operation. There are much, much more. And we look in every startup DNA, how much of those core DNA of that below 70% is in that startup. Because the statistic says there's much more information, there's much more data about those startups who were not successful, so you can draw more conclusions about that. And our assumption is the remaining startups that have not so much in common with the lower 70% have a higher ability to survive. and then they do not need to grow like a unicorn, it's okay to just bring their money back with a certain multiple. So that's the 5 most basic things we are looking for, but I can talk hours about what makes a startup successful. And yeah.
Is there no-goes? Except for you can basically divide the economic success from the ecological. I got that. Is there anything else where maybe not universal no-goes, but capacura no-goes, things that you simply, that doesn't fit your investment proposition?
Yeah, when the startup is not in the space of healthcare, education, environment, for sure we will not invest. When the startup has or targets a valuation of more than 10 million, it's not young enough for us, because we say we are not looking for the best startups in the world, but we are looking for those startups that fit perfectly to what we can deliver. And we do not just deliver some money, we want to add some knowledge. And together with our knowledge, the startup needs to be more successful than without our knowledge. And this is not, sometimes we say, well, we do not invest just because of the startup, but just because of us.
I have one last question before I'd open up the floor to the rest of you to ask your question, because Ingo already said hopefully you have more questions than you had when you came. One last question. I mean, to me it's clear you started Capacura, I think you said 5 years ago, and impact funds clearly are on the rise in the last couple of years, and Laura already explained political circumstances are clearly in favor of understanding how important it is to go into impact funding. However, and maybe you don't have an answer, but maybe you have one, since you seem to be like one of the early adopters into things that people should care for. What is trends that you are looking into right at this moment in time, and what are things that you're interested in that may also be of interest to everyone here?
Do you mean you want to look me in the
What
crystal?
would we be talking about in 5 years if you're sitting here?
So I have no crystal ball here. However, I really want to touch the life of more and more people. Laura said, think about impact, not about outcome. For me, sometimes it's difficult to differentiate. We started with a vision to provide access to another €1 billion for German startups in the impact space. For sure, this is an outcome. But the impact is we want that German startups have it easier to get money than ever before. And honestly, we want that it's easier for them rather than old school startups to get money. This is something that I want to achieve within the next 5 years, however it looks.
Okay, thank you. So I open up the floor, and I'm waiting for like the awkward 1 to 2 minutes before the first hand goes up, but maybe you can be faster. And I'll come to you to give you the micro. Should I read them? Lucas is having 2 questions already. The first one is, are the criteria from your code you choose the startups with openly published?
You mean, okay. You cannot answer the question that I have regarding that question. So the question,
unfortunately, I can pretend to be Lucas. But
okay,
it's hard for me.
When you are registered on our website as a potential investor, you see at least in those 5 criterions how good the startup performed when we decided to invest. When you are a founder and want to know why am I so good in team and why I'm not so good in idea, every startup that accesses signup.capacura.de receives from us a PDF document with an AI-generated company valuation plus a list of, let's say, 500 or even more investors, because we want to give something back to the community. We learn even from those startups where we do not invest. And we want to give them the opportunity to not only to learn how we evaluate them, but also, as I already said, sometimes it is that we love the idea, but we are not the right investor. So it's a partnership to achieve those goals.
Okay, thank you. I hope that answered Lucas. If it didn't, you could still just write another question. He had another question, and he seems to be interested in the investor's side of Capacura. How is the investor secured in the case of Capacura's bankruptcy, is the question.
Oh, this is a very good question. Unfortunately, in Germany, really security can just be given by a fund. However, when you create a fund, the regulatory environments makes it impossible for normal people to invest just little money. So, for example, a special AIF, which is a special fund structure, means you need to invest at least 200,000 euro. So we struggled in order to give investors the opportunity to profit from the securities of a fund. Unfortunately, this is impossible for us to provide that today. However, we understand this is a very important thing. So we created two different companies. One company is holding the shares and assets, and the other company is paying our employees and takes burden of the costs. So it is possible, but the probability is much lower that Capacura goes bankruptcy.
Understood. Did this warm you up, the two questions from the digital viewers? Perfect. Thank you so much. Now I don't know who was first, and I have three already. Okay, you had to Krücken already, so I go for you.
Okay. My question is it more difficult for your impact startups at the moment with all the crisis than it was the years before?
It is for all startups more difficult to raise money, if this is the core of the question, than in the years before. However, as we look for sustainability, not only in the impact, but also in the way how to grow a company, there are more startups in our portfolio that need just a smaller amount of money to grow than conventional startups that are very money hungry. And so for them it is at the end of the day easier to get money. And some of them don't even need any additional money because they are already break even. And this is something that I would give you as founders as an idea, as a hint. Be prepared that you don't get addicted from VC money.
Okay, I move over to you.
Yeah, hi. I would like to hear your thoughts on people versus business. So I would like to challenge you a little, because you were saying you would not invest in, for example, Ecosia, because you said the business model, like people can change. They could just basically become Google and become more, basically focus more on the business than on the impact side. And in your AI model that you showed or that you talked about, your machine, you evaluate a company based on data that you have. So I would like to hear your opinion on that, because I believe that, basically you have to invest in people and not in the business that they do. So That's in the example of Ecosia. If I would be an investor, I'm not because I don't have money, but I would basically talk to the founders and try out what they really want to do and not exactly follow their business model, because I'm a founder and I did pivot, and basically every startup that I know did multiple pivots. So if I would present you my first business idea, maybe based on your data, you would say like, no, it doesn't work out. But if you're a good founder, you find a way to success. So it's a little bit contradictory with your approach, because you say you focus on data, you compare to other things, but maybe the founders that you did invest or did not invest didn't reach the stage yet. They didn't get enough data, they didn't get enough, traction, or didn't find the right business model because they just started 6 months ago, etc. So what would you say at looking at human side versus looking at business side?
Using data to analyze possible startup success doesn't mean you do not look at people. When I, for example, have the register number of a company called Capacura, which is 14778 at Amtsgericht Siegburg, I will find out a list of shareholders. And with that list of shareholders, I could go to LinkedIn. And with that list, I could get the names and the CVs of all people on the shareholder list. And I could distinguish between people who are potentially investors and people who are potentially C-level and founders of the company. And I could understand the background of the founders. For example, for me, it's super important in healthcare startups that at least one person is a former medicine student or an MD or something like that. And in a IT startup, I wouldn't invest if nobody has a background in IT. I understand that there are dropouts from especially US universities who were quite successful. However, the majority of people who have not that kind of background fail. And finally, and this is something that most people don't are aware of, if I go with my machine through the posts in social media, I understand how those guys are able to interact with the community. When you post on, for example, LinkedIn or Instagram, an AI is able to predict your psychological profile. And as a team, it's quite interesting if you are in the Myers-Briggs model, if you are blue or all red persons, or if you are a good mixture. So we look for basic skills and basic data, and then my wife is always saying, we not just invest, we fall in love. And that means we need you to present at one of our pitch days, and we want that personal conversation after that. But in order to save your time, first of all, we want to read the real data and find out if it's meaningful for you and for us to have a deeper conversation, because it's so time-consuming doing fundraising. Even the startups in our portfolio, they're saying sometimes they speak with 50 or even 100 business angels before one is saying, okay, I would like to invest. And when you could do that within a couple of minutes and only have a deeper, longer, costlier conversation when the hard data really fits, this is meaningful. However, you are absolutely right. You invest in people, but you also invest in teams, and teams can be measured. But most people do not do this because they have no clue how to do that.
Thank you. You're still up for your question?
Ingo, thanks for sharing your story and for doing what you do with Capacura. So you invested in so many startups. In the meantime, 20 million, I think, is what you have under management. To conclude on this session today, maybe the question is, how can we all that we are working for impact investing, how can we draw more people into this and a higher amount of investment? I mean, I think you are targeting, or you mentioned $1 billion or something. So what would be your key messages? I mean, a lot of what you said is kind of common sense, AI supported and so on, to invest in the right people, but still there is a lack of investment there in Germany in particular, but also in the DACH region. So what would be your messages? How can this be scaled up more?
Well, we at capacura are not alone. There are more and more upcoming new opportunities how to invest in startups, even with smaller amount of money or with smarter amount of money, or even for the more richer guys, to broader invest in more startups or more specific startups and all that stuff. Just use the opportunities that there are in the market. In Germany, we quite often look at the state government, at the government, and we think, well, this is something that the government should do. But there is no government really caring for startups in a way that we would need. We invest about 2% of what US or China are investing in startups. 2%. Because it's forbidden that the retirement funds invest in startups. On the other hand, more and more people are afraid that when they retire, they do not have enough money. So they need to care for their retirement. So why don't you use a part of that what you plan for your retirement and invest a part? Not everything. It is definitely, would be the wrong way. It's risk capital. But for example, 5 or 10% in meaningful startups. And this is something that everybody could do. I would say if you have a certain amount of wealth, subtract your house, subtract your retirement plan that you definitely need. And then for many people, there's something left over, where people not really gamble, but invest in ETFs, in shares, and all that stuff. And take 10% or something and invest in meaningful businesses. This is something that everybody could do, and there are many more opportunities than just capacura, but this would really change the way how we invest. Volkswagen has an EBIT, so every year, which is 5 times higher than the total amount of money spent in the early stage startups in Germany. So with 1 year EBIT, they could pay 5 years of the complete startup scene founded in Germany. So there is enough money in Germany, and we could do something. We need to be aware, we need to talk about that, and we need to educate and explain people that is not impact versus profit, but more like impact through profit. There are opportunities like this. And this is something, even if you do not invest, this is something that everybody could do. Inform people and educate.
Let's switch on. I think we have time for one last question.
Yeah, hi. I have a question about the resources you could probably provide to startups, for example. For example, when I need a founder, I don't only need the money. It's cool to have some more, to get a little bit more leeway, to
get better resources into the business to get it started. But on the other hand, what I also need is networking. For example, you talked about the states or state funding, for example. It's not that they don't promote that all the way. So you have to know people that know, for example, how to work with SIM. And last Friday, for example, I was checking out a possible SIM network. That's really nice. You have 10, 20 companies, and you can then share ideas how to get synergies between those companies to increase those three funny words from the start and to get more of from the companies or startups in the end. I want to know, do you, since you already have, for example, the part like healthcare, for example, I think there are possible a lot of synergies. Do you provide those networking to those companies under your hood for those?
Yes.
Example?
For sure, we bring startups in our network together because learning from each other is really key to be more successful. We have, for example, 2 startups in the healthcare sector, and both were looking for a special kind of silicon that you could could clean up for medical purposes. Completely different products, but at the end of the day, they talked with each other and spoke about suppliers, spoke about a partnership to order higher volumes, all that stuff. During the COVID crisis, we did some calls and invited all of them to share their ideas, how to reduce costs, what you could do, and all that stuff. And and at the end of the day, what we are doing here, this is a large community. I mean, this is not just people spending money on startups. They have know-how, they have knowledge, they have experience. So we ask our startups every month, if there's something that the community could do for them. And there can be very simple things like we are launching a new campaign on April the 6th. And when everybody in the community at April the 6th clicks on our Instagram message, we could trick out the algorithm. But it could be also something like we are looking for people who can open a door to a Chinese manufacturer for XYZ. I don't know. So we ask them, and then we try to match those with the community. This is definitely not perfect today, but this gives you an idea how we try to leverage the power of the community and the power of the networks. And we as investors, we have for sure our own networks. In the past, I was a rector of one of the largest German universities. So my network in the education space is quite big. So I can really help, not only in a strategic, but also in a networking sense, the startups in our portfolio. And we have other investors in our community who really know how the healthcare system works, and so on and so far. So yes, we are an investor plus a community, and this is, from my point of view, stronger than just a group of business angels or a group of VCs.
Okay, so I think it's up to me now to thank you for your time. I have to say it's been the first GrowYng in that kind of new setup. So you've been our guinea pig. I couldn't be happier with the guinea pig. I thank you a lot. I think you truly inspired us, and it was very interesting to listen to you. And one thing I have to say, thank you for your openness. I think it's not very German to share personal experiences and be open about personal history and also about the company, and that's something that I valued a lot, and I hope it was interesting for the rest of you too. We have a couple of drinks and we also have some food, so whoever wants to stay and join a couple of more conversations, feel free, feel invited, and I thank everyone for coming here.
Thank you.